Welcome to Paranormal Files Into the Darkness. I am your host, Sean Wagner. Tonight, Michael and I will be talking with an associate member of the Parapsychological Association and author, Craig Weiler. Check it out right now, right after our introduction. The paranormal world is one of moving shadows. Strange figures hidden just out of sight. Supernatural phenomena usually offers more questions than answers. Spirits, demons, and the undead. Join us as we journey into the darkness. With researchers, investigators, psychics, or mediums, each one getting us one step closer to the truth. I'm Sean Wagner, and these are the Paranormal Files. All right. It's good to be back. Also, it's time for me to bring on my co-host for tonight. I have someone new coming on as co-host. He's going to be on as often as he wants to be on, hopefully almost every time. And it's going to be, 1 second, we'll bring him on. It's going to be Michael Purcell. How you doing? How you doing, Michael?
Good, Sean. How about yourself?
Doing good. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Appreciate the offer. And
hey, you got it. Looking forward to having you on as another co-host. And also, this show, by the way, is a super chat. And please give us a like and a share on Facebook, or a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts on YouTube, and share. Thank you. Also, I do have something to a little bit different to promote. A supporter of our show, Central Pennsylvania Investigators, under the name Central Penn Investigators on Google Play, has created an app. It's a pretty cool app. It has links for BFRO, for Bigfoot researchers, also links to allegedly haunted locations throughout the world and Pennsylvania. Also, missing and mysterious deaths are included as a link as well. Even a map in case you need to know where you are, as well as moon and weather links. Consider checking it out, again, on Google Play only for Android. Central Penn Investigators. Michael, do you happen to have anything to add by chance?
No, I'm not at this time.
All right. It's now time that we take and bring on our special guest for tonight. All right. Also, if you have any questions I forgot, please put them in all capital letters. He is a California Bay Area-based author and science editor for Paranormal Daily News. He covers controversies in parapsychology, such as the Wikipedia controversy, the TED controversy of 2013, and has reported on 10 years of undiscovered research by Russell Gruber at Mirror Worlds Research. He is currently working on the first issue of Parawize, a new magazine devoted to parapsychology and other edge sciences. He is an associate member of the Parapsychological Association. Also, author of Psi Wars, TED, Wikipedia, and the Battle for the Internet. The book's available on Amazon and at whitecrowbooks.com. His websites include paranormaldailynews.com and Weiler Psi Blog, WeilerPsiblog.wordpress.com. And like most of us, he actually has a regular job. He has a small construction business on the peninsula in Northern California, where he lives with his wife and just enough cats. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is Craig Weiler. One moment here. There we go. How are you doing, Craig?
Hi, Sean. Hi, Michael. It is great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you come on our show as well, certainly.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And also, I like to begin with a little bit of a toast.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys both happen to have something by chance?
I do not. Nope.
You don't? Okay.
A virtual drink.
A virtual drink. That works for me. Cheers to a good show.
Cheers.
Good show.
All right. One of my favorite questions I always like to ask people, because you never know what the answer is going to be. When you were growing up, what did your parents think of the paranormal?
That's an interesting one because I had the believer mother and the skeptic father. And it took my father a long time, but I managed to turn him around. And my mom's always been on the spiritual side. She actually worked for the Rosicrucians for a while. And just has always been interested in the subject. So I kind of took after her on that side. But my father is an engineer, and I also take after him on that side. So I've got a bit of both worlds there, which put me straight into the science of parapsychology category.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you never know. That's one thing we never know how the parents are, and you get all kinds of answers on that one.
Oh yeah. Amazingly, both of my parents are still alive. My father turns 88 in May.
That's awesome.
That's good.
It is. Yeah.
So what?
Do you happen to live nearby him?
He lives about an hour away in this huge retirement community in South San Jose called The Villages.
Nice.
And my mother lives in outside of Las Vegas. I don't know why. It's way too hot in the summer and it's way too cold in the winter. But that's where she wants to live. So there be. Oh well.
Hey, then she gets a chance to get some good gambling in too. And
she doesn't gamble.
Oh, she doesn't gamble at all?
No, doesn't like it. But they do take care. They do take advantage of the buffets occasionally.
Hey.
Oh, you have, yeah. Being around, I enjoy a good buffet.
Mm-hmm. Some of the casino buffets are really spectacular.
Oh yeah.
That sounds cool. Well, actually, one of my former bosses out of work actually retired from Central Pennsylvania here to Vegas, and then he was an usher, as far as I know, at Thomas and Mack, where UNLV plays. I don't know how much better jobs there would be to do other than watch sporting events going on at an arena. In retirement and getting paid for it.
Yeah, there's that.
Definitely not bad.
No.
Can you also happen to tell us a little bit about the controversy on the field of parapsychology?
Well, the whole field is controversial. So you can pretty much pick any part of their research and you'll find skepticism on it. So a lot of it is organized skepticism and most of it's, frankly, not very good. But it's always there. They get in the media. They tell everybody, all this weird stuff about psychic ability. But, if you think about it rationally, roughly half the world has had some sort of psychic experience at some time. Roughly half the world. Psychic ability is found in every single culture around the entire world, in every socioeconomic group. So whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whether they're educated or uneducated, psychic ability shows up in all these different categories and throughout history. So this is something that science should expect to find, right? I mean, it's
definitely, I agree.
It's really very common. And so when you have this skepticism, it's usually based on the idea that psychic ability can't possibly exist. And that one blows my mind. But this is where a lot of the skepticism comes from, and they'll literally twist themselves into pretzels, trying to take research and prove that it's not true, and they do it with everything. That is really how the field works, and why it's so controversial. Is they constantly have people getting in there and saying that no, this research was bogus. That's not true. We calculated this and it didn't come out to anything, or we did our own study and we failed at it, so therefore all of your research must have failed, that kind of thing. You see all this weird stuff going on with parapsychology. That's what makes it interesting.
Oh, definitely, I agree. And I do investigate with a psychic. We have a psychic in our group. And she was sick. She's supposed to be with us tonight. Unfortunately, she was sick. And my only thing about it is she's great. You have to watch the people that come along like claiming to have abilities and telling you, oh yeah, there's some kind of, I sense a spirit in that corner and it might be dark, or we might say that and all that other stuff. And you can't trust much of what they say. Most of them are just BSing you, unfortunately.
Well, that is a problem with when you're talking about psychic ability just in general and people practicing it is from a business standpoint, it's an unregulated field, and your ability to measure somebody's expertise is quite limited. You basically have to try them first in order to find out anything about them. There's nothing to measure. There's no credentialing there, and you just you basically you spend your money and you take your chances. In terms of psychics, that's just kind of how that goes, and it's a function of how society treats them. Because all they would need to do is regulate them. I'm in construction. It's a really heavily regulated industry because people get cheated all the time, right? Yeah, you can lose thousands of dollars with this. So you could do the same thing with psychics. It would be fairly easy to do because nobody goes around and checks whether I'm good at construction. They make me post a bond, they license me, and they force me to adhere to a certain laws, and we're done. And they could do the same thing to psychics. Have them post a bond, license them, and then wait for complaints. And then if a psychic really screws somebody over, and usually it's one of these, I need to remove this curse for $10,000, right? That's the scam.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, you just pull it out of their bond and they're done. So these things are relatively easy to regulate, but that would mean giving credibility to skeptics and credibility to psychics, and oh my God, we can't have that.
Oh, I definitely agree. But there are a lot of people that are good at it too, as well.
There are.
And what I said is certainly applies mostly to not so much the people you're referring to, the professionals. There's a lot of people out there like you might do a paranormal investigation with, and just they're the ones who'll just say that all of a sudden have psychic ability or claim to have psychic abilities. But there are a lot of professionals out there that you were referring to as well, certainly.
Yeah, and there's
mostly what you said.
Yeah, there's a lot of variation among professionals as well, and you'll have people who are extremely good next to people who are absolute not good.
I never thought of that, but that's true.
Yeah, there's it's a function of the field just not having any sort of professional standards or associations so that people know what they're getting. It's easier to find a good plumber than it is to find a good psychic.
I can see that.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So do you have an ability, or what drew you to is this the field or like psychic versus like the paranormal investigation and all that other stuff? What drew you to parapsychology?
Well, I particularly like parapsychology because, a few reasons. First of all, everybody involved in it at that level is super serious, right? These are people who actually dedicated a career to looking into it. The other part of it is that science follows a very, very particular route of people being very, very correct in what they're saying and not claiming more than they actually can. And, you see a lot of that in the language of science is this appears to be, or we have results that appear to show this, here's our chart, here's what we measured, here's how far we took this, and no more. And all of these results are put together and everything builds on something else. That's how science works. So, for example, you start out with somebody finds out whether you can affect throws of dice on a table, whether mind control, being able to affect the dice. Turns out you can, but it's too small to make any money in Vegas. But the effect is there. And then from there, once they establish that, then they can try different experiments. They now use something called a random event generator, where people try to affect something on a computer. And then they can do hundreds of experiments very quickly, which is necessary because, again, the effect is very small. And then they can find out different things. Well, what if we use a person who's really artistic? Or what if we use a person who's really good with numbers? Or what if we do this in the morning? So once you have an effect that you can get regularly, now you can do different types of things with the experiment, and you can find out different stuff. And right, so one of the experiments they do that a lot with is something called the Ganzfeld. This is their flagship telepathy experiment. And what they do with that is, this has been running for over almost 40 years now. So what they're doing at this point, they know that they can get a certain effect size on a regular basis. So now what they do is they say, well, let's try twins. Let's try people who know each other. Let's try family members. Let's try artistic students. So, for example, they had one study that was way better than all the rest, where they used professional artists. So apparently when people do art professionally, they're incredibly good and accurate at visualization. So when they do a telepathy experiment where they're asked to psychically get certain pictures, they're very good at getting them because they're trained to do this. They're trained to have these pictures in their mind, so they're very good at it. And so whereas the rest of the world might have a 33% success rate, they have a 45%.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can do all these things with the experiments, and you can, when you have that, for example, you can find out how many experiments you can do before people wear out, because that's another consideration with psychic ability. People can't do that for very long before they get tired. And then they have experiments with mediums. And so once they've established that somebody is a real medium through some very complicated experiments, then they can find out things about now we have mediums that we know are good. Let's find out about those particular mediums. What do they have in common? And so these are the things that science does. It takes, you start with an experiment, and then you can once you have that knowledge there, you can build on that, and then that knowledge builds on something else, and then you have a real knowledge base, as opposed to, say, everybody going out and doing investigations, but not documenting and sharing that information in a systematic way. Everybody learns something, and people personally get a lot of value out of this, but as far as advancing the field, that goes much more slowly in that case.
Okay.
All right. Let's go back in here for a moment. Hey, Brendan, thank you for tuning in. Facebook user message for Michael. Is that Michael Purcell? What's up, bro?
It is.
Also Marla. Hey, Marla, how you doing? Giving us all a hello. All right. And hopefully you got turkey, Brendan. All right. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in capital letters. What's your biggest story?
My biggest story? Mm-hmm. That was the incident at TED in 2013. This was the subject of my book, and that story is what really kind of put me on the map in terms of parapsychology, which is a tiny field, so I'm on a tiny map. But I got on the map, nice. And what happened is that TED, of course, has their TED Talks, right? And mm-hmm. they had Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake is a researcher. His specialty is something called morphic resonance, which is a theory that he worked on for many years and developed. And I think he even published that in Nature or something like that. It just, he was taken very seriously. And he also was he also put a lot of experiments out there on telepathy and psychic ability with animals. He's famous for his experiment with dogs that know that their owner is coming home.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And his website, sheldrake.com, I think it is worth checking out. So anyway, he's doing this TED Talk, and he's doing it on something called the science delusion. And he's got these 10 points about materialism and how science is operating under the assumption that the universe is material. And he's saying, well, we've got these points of materialism, and what if we turn them into questions and we ask, what if we ask, is this real? Is that real? Is the other thing real? And Ted decided that he was doing pseudoscience and shut him down, but then they opened the whole thing up to discussion on their website. And this is where I came in. About 2 or 3 days into this little kerfuffle, I found out about it, and I ran around to other people that I knew who were also into parapsychology and got them involved in it. And suddenly we had this huge crowd showing up to TED and discussing this particular talk. And the beauty of it is that this was probably the first large public discussion of materialism versus idealism that we've ever had. There were like 1,000 some odd comments. All sorts of intellectuals and intellectual luminaries jumped into this discussion, and this was discussed on other platforms, and it just became a really, really big deal, this controversy at TED. And so I covered the thing, and then it turned out that TED had another conference that they were going to put on in West Hollywood, and I found out from the person that was going to put it on that they were going to cancel that. Ted just decided, they're doing pseudoscience, we have to cancel this one. Right? A month before this event is supposed to go on, Ted decides to cancel it. Yeah. That woman was pissed. So I scooped that. That was part of my journalistic effort, and I was following this whole TED thing, trying to get more sources involved, trying to get it into the mainstream media. And there was so much to it. And part of this whole thing was that I had the background of having studied skeptics for several years before that. So while I was watching this play out, I knew the kind of skepticism that was getting involved. And I thought, hey, this all needs to come together. I need to write a book that shares this information. So I put one chapter about what was going on with TED, and then I'd have a chapter about the skepticism and the science, and then just followed through with the book. But the important part of it is that this was probably the first really open dialogue where it was just a free-for-all on the intellectual conflict between materialism, which is, this ordinary mainstream science thing of believing that the universe is material, and the more idealistic approach. Idealism is basically you believe that the universe is made out of ideas. So these are really two very basic concepts. And by, in questioning materialism, that undermines a lot of the skeptics' points, because if materialism isn't true, then the skeptics have no argument. I know this gets really esoteric. And it's very hard for people to follow, but your philosophy of science underpins everything else. Because if you believe that the universe is a material place, then this is real, but what's going on up here is fake, right? That's the materialist part. Fake, real. We can touch this. I can smell it. I can play with it. I can do things with it. But my mind, there's nothing there to measure. So it must be fake, right? That's the materialist viewpoint. The idealist viewpoint is, I cannot look at this thing without giving it meaning. And the only way I can describe that is with ideas. Smooth, rough, hard. It knocks. I can hear it. All of these things are thoughts. They're ideas. And this is the only way I can perceive that object is with thoughts and ideas. Well, if that's the only way I can perceive something is with thoughts and ideas, then really I'm looking at an idea, not an object.
Yeah, because there's no. I'll go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm. You got me totally into this. And
Okay.
I mean, it's
Because there's no scientific proof how people, whether it be in psychics or remote viewing or past life people, how they come up with information. There's no scientific proof to any of that stuff. How they come up with that information.
Yeah, that's the and actually that's discussed a lot in parapsychology because that's the basic black box that we're all dealing with. Is what goes on in the mind can't be seen. See, science is about measuring. Science is about what you can measure. If you can't measure it, science really doesn't have a lot to say about it because everything in science is measuring. And for example, when we measure something, we're measuring a relationship, right? There's nothing in the universe that's an inch. An inch is an idea, right? And in order to have an inch, we have to have some physical object that we say this is an inch long. If that object changes in size in any way and everything else changes with it, we have no way of knowing because we can only understand that object in relation to other objects. And we can only understand a measurement in relation to other things. So this is really all very mental. And there's no way to tell whether something is physical or mental in terms of the philosophy. You can't prove something is physical because you can only use your mind, which you can only use your mind to discover it, and you have to be conscious. We can't find something when we're dead, right? We can't interact with something.
That's true. At
And
least
so
in
we don't
theory.
know whether it's real. Now the question is, what holds it all together? Why is this physical reality so robust?
Mm-hmm.
So I personally think that it's because we're all connected, and that it's this huge connection of not just with humans but with all of life that holds this reality together. And one person can't just suddenly change it at will because they're they're connected. So that's the theory. And of course, materialists think that's all woo, right? Woo, ooh, airy fairy stuff, woo. But it has very, very sound philosophical underpinnings. You just have to think about it.
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
And to touch on what Sean said about past life, I mean, there's some things like you could maybe Google and come up, but if you have somebody that claims to be from a past life that has specific information that's not able to obtain on Google or on the internet, I mean, there's got to be some validity, because how would you question that? Like if I came up with something that, I mean, yeah, I guess you could have the skeptics say, well, you made that up. It's like, okay, I might have made it up, but it's, I mean, what's your take on the past life?
Well, my take on this is I got to a point long ago where I felt I had enough evidence.
Okay.
And that's really what it amounts to. If you go on the Psi Encyclopedia, which is put out by the Society for Psychical Research, so Psi, PSI, Encyclopedia, it's all one word.
Okay.
And if you go on to that, they have a lot of case studies, articles on case studies there.
We can go there. Sorry to interrupt you. We can go there right now. 1 second here.
Okay.
What's the website name? I'm sorry.
Psi, PSI Encyclopedia.
Psi Encyclopedia.
Yep.
All right. Give me one moment here, and I will change out the screen here.
Whenever you have a question about psychic stuff, go there first. You might find an article on something.
Oh, nice, nice.
And it's all science, which makes it super, super helpful.
Okay, one moment here. Something didn't come up right for me. There we go. Science Encyclopedia. Brings up wikiparanormal.com, and it's in,
No.
I think, German, I believe.
No. This is the SPR Psi Encyclopedia. So Google
SPR?
Google SPR.
Okay, one second here. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. SPR
space Psi PSI space Encyclopedia.
I missed the first part. That'll make a big difference.
Okay, SPR space Psi PSI space Encyclopedia. And then
I'm sorry. No. Yeah, the first time I missed it. I'm sorry. Here we go. Give me a moment here and I'll have it up here in a moment.
Okay.
All right. And let's remove that. All right.
So anyway, you'll find a lot of reincarnation case studies on the Psi Encyclopedia, and they're really good articles, and they're just about the right length to read in one sitting. So I was convinced a long time ago. I'm in construction, and this is an area where I got trained by experience to just decide things and move on. Yep, that's it. So
what's one moment here? We made a slight mistake here. I need to.
Yeah, that's
supposed to be a different screen. Yeah, I somehow ended up with the wrong thing here.
You just need to click on Psi Encyclopedia there, and you should be good.
Yeah, I hit the. There we go. Now I got rid of what I had. Now we'll get there. I guess I had two things that said Psi Encyclopedia, and I picked the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Now we're going to finally have the right thing here. Give me one moment here, and I'll have it up on the screen.
Okay.
There we go. That should be it.
So really fascinating stuff on the site. When I use it myself, I generally go to the contents A through Z because I'm generally looking for something in specific. Wow. So a lot of these names in here are reincarnation cases. A lot of them are researchers too, but there's also a lot of them are reincarnation. And then they have some interesting stuff on reincarnation. For example, short past lives, or I'm sorry, short intermission periods between lives where they've documented that, what the intermission area is like, what people have come. If you go up a little ways to reincarnation, you can just pick one.
Oh, okay. One second here. Let me get there here. Whoops.
Yeah, just scroll down a little bit and you'll see all kinds of stuff on reincarnation. There you go.
Okay, which one should I hit?
Well, just look at them for a second and see how much stuff they have. Reincarnation and karma with phobia, suicide, buried treasure. Woohoo!
Sounds good to me.
Pre-1900 reincarnation accounts pre-1900. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of stuff on reincarnation. So I was convinced long ago that this was something real. And based upon the rest of my research, if you're involved in this long enough, it just stops being weird and you stop questioning it. It just becomes a normal science at some point. It's like, oh yeah, reincarnation, la di da. You get started on this, you're never going to stop.
I can definitely see that because in reincarnation alone, there's about 10 to 12, and the chance for treasure would. How do you not read the chance for treasure at least?
I know, right? Yeah.
Grab a metal detector and a shovel.
Absolutely.
So if you wanted to, you could find James Matlock, the author, on Facebook. He has a site there. For the life Signs of Reincarnation is the website that he helps manage on Facebook. Signs of Reincarnation.
All right,
so
maybe.
They've got like 75,000 members. So it's a huge Facebook site. And
one second here.
So if you had specific questions about reincarnation, you could actually ask him.
Signs of reincarnation.
Yeah,
There we go. We'll bring that up here. I'll switch screens again in a moment
okay.
here.
This is wild.
There we go. Uh-oh, I can't. It's private. I can't get too far into it.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't know.
No problem. That's
yeah.
I figured it. We'll try, see what happens when we get there.
Yeah. See, I don't really I don't pay attention to those things in all these groups. I'm really well known in the community, so whenever I want to get into any group, they just pop me in.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice, actually. I'll have to try to apply for that one, though.
Yeah. Oh, and then yeah. I mean, if you apply and they let you in, which they're pretty good about it. Basically what they're trying to keep out are hostile jerks.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay to be skeptical. You just can't be the belligerent pseudo skeptical type, which we all know how those people are.
Oh yeah.
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 Would James Matlock be included in the list right here?
Yep, he's in there.
Okay, 1 second. Here we can go there at least. 1 second here. And Matlock is his last name, obviously. Just double
Matlock
checking.
is his last name. Yeah.
All right.
Might want to
Actually,
screw up.
probably up top here. There we go.
There he is.
Yep. So, yeah, and you can see he's got him and actually a lot of these people. They have advanced degrees. They've been doing it a long time. They've got a lot of experience and background for dealing with it. They're not nobodies. These people that work on this stuff, they're very serious. That was one of the things that I found out about parapsychology that is just so cool, is these people are real scientists in the truest sense of the word. They are explorers. They are interested in the unknown. They are not just in there to publish or perish. They want to actually learn about stuff, and they're very, very passionate about it. They're what we imagine scientists to be, and it's almost everybody. They're great people to interact with.
Just so people can see what all. I know it did give a minor information or index, but here's a little bit of an outline. I mean, here's a little bit more specific stuff down below.
Right. So Matlock's trajectory is pretty common in that he started off doing other things and slowly drifted into this research. He might have had early interests, but he got well-rounded in other areas first and then moved into parapsychological interests later. That is really common. You see that with a lot of people. And that is actually changing. I've been seeing a lot more young people getting into parapsychology and getting super pumped up about it. It's more open than it used to be. Because of the internet. The internet has been the greatest thing since sliced bread. Boy, did I just date myself with that one there. So the internet has been the greatest thing because it allowed parapsychology to make its own case and not be constantly not constantly deal with gatekeeping. Pre-internet, you couldn't find anything about parapsychology. You just couldn't. It was really hard to get any information about it at all. If I'd known, I probably would have gone into it from like high school, just like had a straight trajectory for that. But I didn't know it existed. Anyway, so before pre-internet, there was all this gatekeeping. This might be university departments deciding that stuff didn't get published. People with an interest kind of didn't get tenure, that kind of thing. This was really common, and with the internet and with the ability of people with this interest to share information and get around all these gatekeepers, now we've been seeing a lot more expansion of that area. That there's more people, it's getting more funding, and a lot more information gets shared, and slowly making inroads against this incredibly intractable, unreasonable skepticism.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
what's you might have what's the I hope I didn't miss it actually, but what's the best scientific evidence for psychic ability?
There are a couple of areas that are the best evidence. One of them is the Ganzfeld.
Okay.
And so the Ganzfeld is a telepathy study, and it's done in a very particular manner to give the best chance for telepathy to occur. So they have a sender and they have a receiver. Now the receiver kind of lays back, nice and comfortable in a quiet room, electronically shielded. They have little ping pong balls over their eyes so that they really can't see anything except diffuse light. They've got headphones.
Sensory deprivation, complete sensory deprivation, right?
Almost.
Almost.
But you know they've got white noise being pumped into their ears, so they really don't have a lot of sensation going on. And then they kind of lay back, and the person in the sender room is given one of 4 pictures at random, chosen by a random generator. They have a choice between 4 pictures, and they're shown one of them, and it's their job to send that picture to the receiver. And that might be a picture of a pagoda, maybe a rocket ship taking off, maybe 2 people kissing, some horses running, who knows, right? They have a specific list of pictures that work better than others, mostly something that's kind of active with some emotional content to it. Then what happens is that the receiver, they say, okay, then somebody tells them, okay, we're sending now. What are you getting? And they go, oh, I see this, that, or the other. I see this picture of this thing. And that information gets recorded. Then the judges go back and they look at this transcript of this, and they measure it against the picture that was actually sent versus the other ones, and to see whether this particular picture was more accurate than the random ones. So, for example, the person's going, I saw this thing with, it was a building. It had, kind of a sweeping, steep roofs, 3 or 4 of them going down, and the picture's a pagoda, right? So they know, oh, that person nailed it. And so there's a specific chance element to it because it's one of 4 pictures, there's a 25% chance of just randomly getting the right picture. So now chance is exactly 25%. So if the people doing the experiment get above 25%, then you know that they're doing better than chance, which means that you're getting an effect. And what happens in this experiment is that they regularly hit 32 to 33%. So they're regularly beating chance. They're getting about a third of them right, when 25% would be pure chance. That's how that works. So the thing about this experiment that makes it special in terms of parapsychology is that it started in the 1980s. It was done in collaboration with a very fierce skeptic, so that this experiment got refined very quickly and got improved and met a lot of skeptical objections right off the bat. Then the stuff had to be done by hand at first, but when computers became a thing in everyday life, then a lot of these processes got automated, which removed some objections. And they've done like 5,000 or 6,000 trials by this time. They've got tons and tons of data on this experiment. There have been over 50 different experimenters that have done this and gotten results from it. There's like 6 different meta-analyses, some of them from skeptics, that all show positive results. So in terms of scientific evidence, this one is really, really robust, the telepathy experiment. So that is probably the best evidence for psychic ability. There's another one that went a little bit differently, and this is an experiment by Daryl Bem, and it was called. You've heard of him?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just paying attention. I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah. So the experiment was by Daryl Bem, and this was a precognition experiment. All he did was he took a regular experiment normally done in psychology, and he flipped something. So instead of so you were taking subconscious reactions through physiological stimuli, right? So it's like a lie detector test where you're measuring people's responses, and they would have the students look at something and then measure the response. So what he did was he measured the response before they actually saw the thing. And that was the precognition experiment. What they found was that people were reacting to some images before they saw them. It was a physiological experience that was below conscious awareness. So they were reacting before it happened. And the thing that made this experiment stand out was that it ticked all the boxes of good science. So it was published in the best of the best of the psychology journals, the name of which is long and I cannot remember it. And so there were a number of things that you had to do with this in terms of analyzing the experiment that had to meet all these criteria, and he met all the criteria. So this was basically a perfect experiment. And it was impossible for somebody to say, well, this was poorly done or something. There were simply no excuses. It was a good experiment. This made huge waves in the scientific world. And to this day, they're still trying to discredit it. They will never give up. So a few years later, he did 90 replications of the experiment. So this should be settled science, but of course it never is. Anyway, but that is also some of the best evidence that parapsychology has. It's those two, the telepathy and the precognition experiment.
Very cool.
And very interesting.
The telepathy one is also similar to remote viewing. Just the sender doesn't know they're sending in remote viewing. Correct? Somewhat similar.
Remote viewing is a little different in that there's typically no sender.
Oh, okay. Oh, I get you.
A typical remote viewing session will be there's we'll call them a director. The director will set up a target for somebody, and then they will assign that target a series of letters or numbers, something random, and they will say, please remote view this, and it'll just be the code for whatever that is, right? So all this person, the remote viewer, is getting is just a string of letters and numbers. That's it. That's all they're getting. This actually works better than anything else, because any sort of clue triggers their conscious mind and doesn't allow them to access the information properly. So the less information you give people, the more accurate they'll probably be.
That's interesting.
It is, yeah.
Because you would think if you get less information, you'd have trouble being more accurate. That's what common sense would think that. That's cool. That's very cool and impressive.
So the theory behind that, put forward by Jim Carpenter in his book First Sight, is that what's happening here is that the brain will look at something and will try to get information. If you can't get information, then the situation becomes ambiguous. If the situation is ambiguous and there's no way to get information from your physical surroundings or in anything that you can do physically, then the conscious mind finally gives up. And then your subconscious can finally take over. But until your conscious mind gives up, you cannot access psychic information. Your conscious mind has to give up first, and then you can do that. You can train yourself to give up. Obviously, people do that, but that's that part of it. Your conscious mind has to be quiet enough to get the information. You have to get past that. And ambiguity is part of what triggers that.
That makes sense. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need this information, but you can't get it through any physical means, and finally, psychic ability will kick in. There is a fascinating train study from the 50s when people were still taking passenger trains for commuting, where the researcher looked at train crashes and ridership. And what they found was that on days when trains crashed, ridership went down. People were subconsciously avoiding trains on the days that they crashed.
That's odd.
That's interesting.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
So on my website, the Weiler Psi, I found that study and I put it up on my site. So it's the latest article there. I don't publish there much anymore because I'm on Paranormal Daily News. But that particular study, I'd heard about it years ago and I had trouble finding it. And finally, somebody helped me, and I found it in an internet archive somewhere. Precognition and analysis.
So it'll be this one right here then, right?
That's it. So it's not much to look at. But if you scroll down, you can find the charts. So what he did was, yeah, and of course this is sideways. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. So anyway, he created tables of these trains and the crashes and how many people were on there and whatnot. He accounted for things like rain, weather and other things that are obvious indicators that, a crash is more likely. But that's a study that you can't do anymore. It's impossible to do this study in this day and age. You can't do it with aircraft because they have, if a plane isn't completely full, they'll fill it with standbys.
So, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah,
and the trains don't run like this anymore.
No, they don't. And also, planes are way safer. There aren't as many crashes, so it's there just isn't as much data. And I don't think what I heard from a researcher when I looked into this many years ago was that, yeah, these airlines, they're not going to want to give you all this data. They don't like talking about crashes for some weird reason.
Yeah, no, I'll put a damper on flying.
Yeah.
Certainly would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so precognition is this subliminal precognition is an interesting aspect of it. That that psychic ability, it demonstrates that psychic ability is on all the time, but we're not really listening to it. This is the stuff that makes science so fascinating. Is you can get this data out of there that you just can't get any other way. Without doing these experiments. And you can see the usefulness of something like remote viewing, right? I mean, if all we need to do is take it seriously. I mean, that's really, and you can remote view all kinds of things, including the future.
Including the future?
Yeah, but you have to. So when they test for this, there's a fellow that was doing some testing that's really an interesting way of doing it. So what he did was he said, "Okay, we're going to remote view this," and he picked a date in the future, he's like, "There's going to be an event in the future," and then he had people remote view it, but he didn't. And then once it was remote viewed, then a month later, somebody came through and picked the event. So that way, they were picking it from the standpoint of the research. They were picking an event that already happened for them. So there wasn't a chance of the remote viewers veering off into an alternate reality. That kind of stuff just blows my mind.
That is something.
Yeah. Having to jump through all these hoops to deal with the weirdness of our reality, and it's so much more fascinating than this boring old materialism stuff. And over and over again, it's demonstrated that the universe is not material, and I think it's just really, really interesting to have that, and you can see applications in so many other areas. For example, if we look at us as an entangled organism and we see what capitalism does. So you picture, what if the body was operating, via capitalism? So the liver was hoarding all the resources. You'd die. It makes for a very unhealthy organism. So,
Oh yeah.
So, and we're actually, the organism is hurt by not acknowledging this connectedness. So it's applicable in areas far beyond parapsychology. So this is just fascinating to me.
Awesome. Let's just check out your Paranormal Daily News location.
Okay.
There we go. That should be it right here. All right. And
so in the upper right-hand corner there is Parapsychology's Journey into the Mainstream. This is an article that I wrote really recently, and it's chiefly because on Wikipedia, parapsychology is presented as being something that's kind of like pseudoscience. They say that it's criticized for being pseudoscience. However, the Parapsychological Association is an affiliate of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Way back in 1969, they were already vetted for doing real science by mainstream science. In other words, the large umbrella organization that covers all of these sciences had already vetted parapsychology. And so this is the story of it. And what happened was that they didn't get vetted until they could actually get to the floor for a main vote. They got stuck in committee. They tried like 4 years in a row. In the first 3 years, they got stuck in committee. And then the fourth year, they had the right people in charge, because these organizations tend to turn over leadership on a regular basis. So they had the right people in charge, and they were actually able to get the vote to the floor. And then they had about 170 to 30 or something like that vote in favor. And I don't know if you know who Margaret Mead is.
can't say that I do.
Okay. At the time, so I do because it's my generation.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, Margaret Mead was in all the anthropology textbooks. Super famous scientist at the time, kind of on the order of Jane Goodall.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, at that level of fame at the time.
Very nice.
Yeah. So she got up and defended parapsychology in front of the association, saying, look, they're doing real science. There's no reason not to have them here. Then the American Association for the Advancement of Science had to change the rules to make sure that people later on didn't kick parapsychology out for no good reason. So they made it much harder to kick out affiliates. It was an acknowledgement that there's all this controversy and irrational hate going on. So this was an interesting article for me to write. And I had the help of somebody from the Parapsychological Association, Annalisa Ventola, who wrote an article for Mindfield, and brought this one to my attention. Mindfield is the parapsychology publication.
Okay. And also, we're going to go in here. They also do have. We're going to go right into it here. Whoops. A Facebook location. I do have that as well. Paranormal Daily News on Facebook coming right up here in a moment.
Oh, yeah. Like everybody else online, they have to be present everywhere.
You have to.
Yeah.
You almost have to.
You almost need somebody to pay to do this, because being on all these different social media is difficult. It's tough work.
Oh, it's a lot of time, and I don't do a good job with my own social media. I
get that.
I can assure you that.
I'm on Twitter mostly. The That's where I post the most. But there's all these other places that you just have to, every time you think you have it down, everybody's shifting off to a new social media place.
Absolutely. That's got to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And we also have Parawize. You can go there in a moment here. Give me a moment here to get rid of the other one. And we'll bring up Parawize.
I'm surprised we didn't have more questions.
Let me see. There is something there I haven't checked for a little bit here. All right. There we go. There's Parawize and.
Yep, this is a magazine that we have in the works. We're trying to get something out there that's accessible to the general public that talks about science. And it's kind of difficult because scientists are used to writing their papers, which is a different kind of writing, and it's not as accessible to ordinary people. It takes a bit of time and effort to go through a scientific paper and to read these things. So we're trying to bring this to the public because, I put links to papers in my Twitter feed all the time, but most people, you can't read all this stuff. They're long, they're difficult, and what people normally need is just the information summed up for them.
I definitely agree there. So there was actually an exorcism performed at Nancy Pelosi's house?
That's not my department.
Oh, that's not your.
So yeah, I saw that one too.
So
go ahead.
So it may or may not be true then.
Well, with all of this stuff, when it's not science, I keep an open mind on it. I don't, I don't take that hard nosed, no, it can't be true if you can't measure it sort of thing. How the hell would I know?
And we,
if they needed an exorcism, so be it. Sometimes that stuff works.
Oh, definitely. I agree. It does work at times.
Yeah. I don't know the nature of reality, and I don't pretend to know. Mm-hmm. This sets me apart from a lot of science editors. I don't pretend to know that that these mysteries are a certain way. I wasn't there. I didn't experience it myself. Who am I to say what actually happened?
Oh, definitely. There's no way to tell, no matter what.
Yeah.
All right, and we have one more thing here. 1 second here. We have the aptitude tests, I call it.
So the Institute of Noetic Sciences puts out something called the Psi Arcade. It's a series of tests for psychic ability, and when you complete the tests, they will tell you how you scored, so you get almost immediate feedback. And
all right.
I've tried it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to remember, I'm just going to keep talking while you look for that.
I made a slight mistake. That's all. So that's why I'm delayed. Go ahead.
All right. So the thing to remember about these experiments is that they are two-tailed. Now, the interesting thing, what I mean by two-tailed is you can be statistically significant psychically, both from doing really well and from doing really poorly. That is a fascinating aspect of it. Now, when I do psi tests, there are some of them where I'm psychic because I do really badly, and others where I'm psychic because I do well. It turns out that the closer that the psi task is to construction, the better I do. And that if it's more abstract or esoteric, I struggle more with those. So, for example, lottery numbers I'm terrible at. But if you ask me to put two dots really close together, that's really like construction, and I'm better at that. So different people will have different results. There's tons of tests in here, and different people will have different results depending upon your own personality. And this is an excellent method to do it. The Institute of Noetic Sciences, I believe Helena is the president this year, is really focused on wellness. So that you're going, when you visit that site, you're going to find a lot of stuff about, personally healing, using various healing methods and that sort of thing. They're focused on the healing part of it. Whereas, for example, the Parapsychological Association that I'm a member of is mostly focused on the hard science. And then you have the Society for Psychical Research. They're more focused on the paranormal the science of the paranormal. Like the poltergeists and stuff like that. And then you have the Rhine Institute, and they've reimagined themselves, so now they're really a training center. And so if you want training in parapsychology, look up the Rhine Center because they have fantastic classes. And John Kruth, which is an excellent teacher, really, really good at what he does. They have these classes down, and they're, I've heard him in a couple of conferences, and you can just tell this guy's a born teacher. So the Rhine Institute is a really great place to learn.
Well, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've gone a little bit more than an hour, so.
Yeah, I could go on forever.
Well, I'm glad you came on here with us. Thank you. Let me see what.
John, Michael,
check the notes here.
Pleasure.
It's what?
It has been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Hey, we're glad you came on. All right, 1 second here. All right, our guest has been a parapsychological member and author Craig Weiler. His book is available on Amazon and webcrowbooks.com. 1 second here. Let me switch something out here. All right, put it back for you. There we go. And his book is Psi Wars, TED. 1 second here. I think I'm missing part of it. TED, Wikipedia, and the Battle for the Internet. Somewhere it's something 2013 too, right? TED 2013, right?
No, 2020.
Oh, 2020. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is what's being published now is the second edition.
Oh, okay. Then Psi Wars, TED, Wikipedia, and the Battle for the Internet. Our next show will be March 23rd, where our guest will be Bill Bean. April 6th, not 20-something. April 6th, our guest will be Greg Lawson. And April 20th, John Kachuba. If you like the broadcast, consider helping us out by liking and sharing. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching on Facebook or giving a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and sharing on YouTube. If you watch this far, don't forget to hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. Michael, anything to add?
Well, if you're in the Bigfoot or cryptids, my wife is having an event in August the 12th. It's a Central PA Bigfoot and Cryptid Festival. So it's in our little neck of the woods. It's in Eastern PA. So be something new because most Bigfoots is either down Virginia or down south or Western Pennsylvania. So we're going to do that. So, yeah. And if you're still into that, my wife, her brand is Got Knockers. So you can check out her Facebook page. GotKnockers.org is her Facebook or her website. I'm sorry. Yeah. So trying to get that out for her.
Sounds good. Yeah, I've had that scrolling amongst the stuff at the bottom.
I saw that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Craig, what about you? You have anything coming up?
Yeah. Do you have anything to add or appearances or anything?
You know what? Nothing. I have been involved in classes with the Parapsychological Association, and that's taken up most of my free time there, because it's what we're trying to do is improve the public relations for the Parapsychological Association. It's me and several other people. And I've been involved in that, but it's more of a behind the scenes thing at this point. I don't have any big projects or anything coming up that I can share at the moment.
Okay. We'd love to have you back anytime,
Yes,
especially if you have something coming up or something to share. I mean, this was very fascinating. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm always
Same
happy
here.
to share with clients.
Yeah.
Same here. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we will be on next again. Just a reminder, March 23rd. We're going to work our way out of here now. If you don't mind, please hang on, Craig, through the out stuff here.
Sure.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
This has been a CARC Universal production.